Okay, slides are visible? Okay, thank you. So, my topic is very interesting, and I think it's something which is very close to my practice and close to my heart. We are going to discuss the use of data in solving common endocrine problems. I think we'll mainly discuss solving our problems rather than solving other problems, because I think that's the first and important prior thing. So that's something we'll be discussing. So my talk is broadly in two parts. In the first part, we'll talk about data in general. But in the second part, I'll show you some practical demonstrations, something which I use in my practice. It's going to be very interesting. So if you can bear through the first part, the second part is going to be something which is going to be very useful to you in your day-to-day practice. Okay, so let me ask you this question. So Zomato was in news a lot these days, and because of the IPO. So what do you think is the business model of Zomato? And you need to ask this question because if you've seen the movie The Founder, which is based on the progress of McDonald's, the biggest food chain in the world right now. One of the a new employee of McDonald's is being hired for that, and he's asked this question: what do you think is the main business model of McDonald's? And of all the people who were interviewed, all of them said it is, somebody said it's a restaurant, somebody said it's a quick food business, but only one of them, who was actually hired and ultimately went on to be the CEO of the company, told that, look, McDonald's is not in the business of all this. McDonald's is in the real estate business. So what McDonald's used to do at that point of time, it used to give franchisees, it used to buy properties in different parts of the country in United States, and used to give this as franchisees on rent to a lot of people. And they would pay a franchisee fee as well as they'll pay a rent. So basically the majority of the income at that point of time for McDonald's was coming from the rental. So it was in a real estate business, and that was a real business, and that is what some of them recognize. In the same way, what you need to understand is Zomato, though it does food delivery, it's mainly in the business of data mining. It's a data mining company, right? Food delivery is a consequence of the data mining and perhaps a product of the data mining business, but their main business is data mining. And if you look at their income generation a few years back, the main income actually came from consultancy with restaurants. So let's say I want to start a new restaurant in Ahmedabad, and I want to know which is the best place for starting the restaurant, which is the type of cuisine I should choose, how much money should I invest. Should I consider food delivery? What kind of food should I deliver? What should be the pricing of my menu? All these things can be provided by Zomato because they have the data. Probably at this point of time, we don't see the importance of that. But in future, right, every food that we did ask for, every pizza that I ate by ordering from Zomato has going to be some value, because it is going to be a data point somewhere. And someday, maybe 10 years from now, when the price of, the Zomato shares will be, instead of 120, it is going to be 1,200. At that point of time, Zomato is going to sell or perhaps use this data in a much more effective way, trying to kind of control the entire industry. So in the same way, if you look at the 5 major tech companies, which is the FANG companies, right? Of these, so which are the FANG companies? This is Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. What is the real business of these 5 FANG companies? The 4 of these 5 FANG companies, and you know which are these. They are in the data mining business. Don't think Facebook is a social media thing, right? It's a data mining business, right? Amazon does not do deliveries. It does deliveries as a consequence, but the main product is data, right? Netflix, it knows what kind of movies, Dr. Sabu likes or Dr. Mahesh likes. He knows your preferences, right? And Google, we know, it's openly a data mining business. It always claims to be, right? The only company which is not data mining in this group is Apple, because they are an anti-data mining company, right? So their main business is to prevent these companies from data mining, and hence it is very successful, right? So one of, Apple products are the ones which are industry standard, and most of the industries which want higher security nowadays prefer Apple products. It used to be BlackBerry in the past, but now it's Apple, right? So the reason is, it tends to have a more, it creates a circle and prevents data from being extracted by these other FANG companies, right? The FANGs of other companies. So data is gold, right? Data is the new gold. Now, I think it is high time we understand this. Now, if we don't understand this, I think it's to our own peril, right? Data is is the future, the entire future business models. So if you're talking about business, if you're talking about artificial intelligence, if you're talking about marketing, if you're talking about healthcare, everything will be based on data. Even today, if India wants to know how many people to vaccinate, what is the prevalence of COVID in particular areas, how to devise a vaccination strategy for COVID-19, how to devise a, which area should be under quarantine, which area should be under lockdown. All these things actually comes from data. And if you don't have data, you are blind. You don't know what to do, right? Everything is anecdotal. Everything is taking a chance. And hence, data is the new goal. I think if we can understand this point, your next 10, 20, 30 years is going to be secure. If you can understand how important data is, you're rest assured it is going to be a very golden future for you. So who owns this data? This is the very important question. And this is not a question which Dr. Om is asking, or Dr. Sabu is asking, or Dr. Mahesh is asking. This is a question which the government of India has been asking, and this has been asking for a long time. So they came up with a personal data protection bill in 2019. At this point of time, it's being analyzed by the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and it's been headed by Meenakshi Lekhi. Of course, there are a lot of stakeholders and there's a lot of discussion going on. So it's still under acts, and eventually it is going to be passed with a few amendments, as we can understand. So one very important thing you will have to understand after the data protection bill passes. This is important because this is what we are trying to model things which are done in Europe and the United States. So these are the terminologies already used in these countries. There are two terminologies you have to understand: personal versus non-personal data. So what is personal data? So my name, email address, phone number, home address, these are all personal data. Whether I'm married or not, whether I have children or not, these are all personal data. So this, who collects personal data? Facebook, right? Who collects personal data? Gmail. Who collects personal data? Instagram, Twitter. These are all personal data. And personal data, the main Data Protection Act is going to be enacted to protect your personal data, right? That is the main idea. Whereas you have non-personal data. For example, what is your favorite? How many people order pizza from Zomato, right? How many people order chicken? How many are vegetarians? How many are non-vegetarians, right? These are all non-personal data. These are anonymized data, right? Other things include a company registration number, data related to deceased individuals, information about legal entities, how many companies are registered in Ahmedabad. These are all non-personal data. And then there are data which are related to special categories. For example, criminal records of person, medical records. So this is where healthcare comes into business. Trade union relationship. What is your political stance? All these things are special categories. And remember, these require ultra protection. So even beyond, maybe your name and email address may not mean so much, but if let's say you're working for a company and you have certain political beliefs, but as your company boss has some other political beliefs, you could lose your job, right? So these are all special category information, and these have to be protected in a special way. So these are the third category which has to be taken into account. So mainly the data protection law is going to deal with personal data and special categories, and the special categories, there will be specific issues dealing with each of the specific categories in the special category list. So does this apply to healthcare? Yes, it does, because if you talk about personal data versus non-personal data in healthcare, the personal data would be, does Mr. Sharma have type 2 diabetes, right? This is a form of personal data. So this is important because let's say Mr. Sharma wants to get married, right? This is a personal thing, right? Do you want their in-laws, prospective in-laws to know this? It is ultimately for Mr. Sharma to decide whether he wants to reveal this to the society, reveal this to his friends, reveal this to his family, reveal this to his prospective bride. All these things are for Mr. Sharma. And if you see in terms of overall perspective, let's say if this data is revealed to the insurance companies, suddenly Mr. Sharma's premium will increase, right? So does Mr. Sharma have type 2 diabetes or not? This is a special protected data, and there are specific laws which will be dealing with this. But I live in an Ambli region of Ahmedabad, and if I want to know what percentage of people living in Ambli region of Ahmedabad have type 2 diabetes. Now, Mr. Sharma may be living next door to me, right? But I'm not taking Mr. Sharma's name. I'm looking at a non-personal anonymized data. This is what is known as non-personal data in healthcare. So in healthcare also there is personal as well as non-personal data. And my insistence is that we focus on this non-personal data not only to improve healthcare overall, but improve our own practice. And this is something which is very, very important for us, right? Then if you specifically talk about healthcare, there is something known as DISHA. So DISHA is Digital Information Security in Healthcare. This is something very similar to HIPAA Act in the United States. So if you are, dealt with any healthcare company, you would have heard about HIPAA. In India, this is known as DISHA. So DISHA is basically tries to seek, electronic health data privacy, confidentiality and security, and it wants to create a national digital health authority and health information exchange. So eventually all your data, in fact all your medical records, will go into this DISHA platform, and there'll be cross portability. So let's say you are changing your EMR platform, you are changing your, as a doctor you're changing your EMR platform, or you're changing your hospital, or you're changing your workplace, or you're moving to your new clinic, you can port this data. And for patients, let's say you're changing the doctor, so you're going to Dr. A in one city, now you're moving to Bangalore and you're moving to Dr. B. In that case, this data will be transferred to the doctor who is looking at in Bangalore. So in that way, it will provide cross portability of this information also, at the same time protecting the information from people who, from marketing companies, from pharma companies, from health technology companies, right? That's what they'll be looking at. Most importantly, insurance companies. Within the so medical data is something which is known as sensitive personal data or information. It's known as SPDI, and it's something very sensitive, right? So if you suffer from let's say piles, now you don't want the entire country to know that you have piles, right? You don't want your employer to know that you have piles. You don't want your friends to know that you have piles. It's personal information. I mean, it's not something you want everybody to know. So these are sensitive personal data or information, and these are something which is very private. So it requires a special kind of protection. So with rules with regard to this, everything is protected. So whenever such data is collected, there should be consent for collection of data. So let's say I'm asking the patient for a history of piles. Again, I should take consent that, look, I am collecting your data, I'm going to store that data, and what I'm going to do with data, everything should be part of the consent. So the patient must be informed that the data is being collected, the patient must be informed that where it is stored, it should be informed where, if it is going to be transferred, how it is going to be transferred, and if it is going to be used by a third party, how is it going to be used by the third party. Everything has to be told to the patient or Mr. Sharma specifically, right? However, of course, non-personalized or anonymous data is what to do with this is not very clear right now. But overall, again, it will be same for anything. So let's say again, how many patients coming to my clinic have piles is an anonymous data, and in that case, that data can be easily collected without any major hassle. But when I'm talking about whether Mr. Sharma has piles or not, that's a personal data, and that's something which has to be, all the consent has to be taken. So if I'm collecting anonymous data, I ask my assistant that you collect, just tick on a paper, you tick piles hai ke piles nahi hai, yes or no, right? If she's just collecting that data, then it becomes a non-anonymous data. So at end of, after 1 month, I will not remember how many patients, which patients had piles or which patient had not. And this data, I store it for publishing a study or something like that, then it's useful. But let's say I'm collecting the data under the umbrella of Mr. Sharma's medical records, then this record has to be, this record consent has to be taken, right? So that's important. So what do you do with this data? So अब आप ये data क्या करोगे? What is the importance for data in your clinical practice as a doctor? So 5 important things. First of all, it will help you understand your patients better. I'll give you examples of all this. It will help you provide more personalized treatment. This is very important. Now, you had the earlier talk on SGLT2 inhibitors. Again, you want to know which patients to give SGLT2 inhibitors, which patients not to give SGLT2 inhibitors. You want to select which patients you want to give insulin, which patients you don't want to give insulin. So this entire process will provide more personalized treatment. It will give, and you are moving to an age of precision medicine, right? So all this data will be useful to provide precision medicine and better healthcare, right? It will help you provide better follow-up of the patient. So again, let's say your patient is not coming regularly on follow-up. What can you do to improve the follow-up, right? When should you call your patients for follow-up so that your practice is not cluttered? All these things will help you in a better way. It will help you conduct clinical audits. So let's say if I've started a patient on insulin, what is the starting dose of insulin in my patients? What is the final dose of insulin in my patient? What kind of patient should I start on insulin? What kind of patient should I start on SGLT2? What are the common side effects of SGLT2? All these things you will be able to do over a patient of clinical audit, and of course you can be able to publish this. Most importantly, which is important in future, as of now, well, there are some companies which pay for data, but in general you don't make too much money out of it. But if you hold on to this is like a a stock of a small cap company or something like that. It is going to be a multi-bagger in future. So if you hold on to this data, perhaps in future there will be a lot of companies. It's already started in the West where people are paying for the data. It has already started in other industries. It is not very far that in India also, very soon in fact, you will have people paying for your data. So people want to know how many people have diabetes, how many patients are on SGLT2, how many patients are on insulin. All these things are important, and you will be able to actually make money out of it. Right now, this may not be your aim. Your aim will be to help patients improve their clinical practice, but and improve your clinical practice. But at the end of the day, remember, you are also sitting on a gold mine, which you may or may not choose to make money out of. Right. So that's the overall outlook. So the question is, and this is what I used to wonder, and I mean, I have this ton of data. Who wants to pay for it? Why should anybody pay for it, right? Why should companies pay for it? What kind of companies will pay for it? So ultimately, this is mainly done for two purposes. One is to conduct market research. So let's say I am a multinational insulin company, right? And I want to introduce a new insulin in the Indian market. Now my insulin portfolio is worth 100 crores, right? That's a big thing. So if I want to invest 100 crores in the Indian market, I'll have to do at least 1 lakh, 10 lakh rupees research for that, right? So I'll have to do some market research. I want to see how many patients in India are on insulin, how many patients continue on insulin, what type of insulins are used in India, what is the price point of these insulins. All these things are what is known as market research. If there is a new SGLT2 coming into the market, again, they'll have to do market research. So for market research, you'll require data. And where will you get this data from? Again, doctors like you and me who collect this data in a systematic way, in a non-anonymized way. This data may be, you will be able to kind of, make some money out of this via market research. But more importantly, why data is really hot now is because if you want to develop artificial intelligence products in the future, you will require data. To tell you simple ideas, right? Which anti-diabetic to give to your patients, right? If you want to create an app, or if you want to create a AI product which will help you choose the right anti-diabetic drug, you will need data. So you'll have to see the prescription pattern of Dr. Om. You'll have to see prescription pattern of Dr. Bharat Sabu. You'll have to see the prescription pattern of Dr. Mahesh, Dr. Navneet. You'll see all their prescription pattern. You'll see that Dr. Navneet ne kaun se patient ko SGLT2 likha, kaun se patient ko sulfonylurea likha, right? All these things, the data points will be collected. What was the BMI of the patient who were given SGLT2? What percentage of patients with SGLT2 had heart failure? So all these things you look into account, and in the future, AI products will be able to predict that, look, Mr. Sharma, you have diabetes, you are obese, you have heart failure, you should be on SGLT2 inhibitor. So these things can be, help develop personalized medicine. And how much, I mean, there is no more trial and error, right? If I can exactly tell you which anti-diabetic drugs to use for rest of your life, it will become very easy for you, right? It will become very easy for me as a doctor, right? I don't have to make too many trials and errors. I don't have to change too many things. So that is what ultimately this will develop into, and that is what the big money is really going to come from. So who is going to buy data? As of now, pharma companies, marketing agencies, and medical technology companies, med tech companies are interested in buying this data. And I mean, whether you are able to sell it today, maybe not, but maybe 10 years down the line, you will be able to kind of make money out of this data. You will be able to mine this data to create gold, actually. Okay, but like I said, that may not be your priority. Your priority would be often, to do better for your patient, and that's very well respected, right? Okay, so let's look at our workflow. What I do in my practice, how do I collect data? So I've used a lot of EMR. I'm actually, consulting a lot of EMR companies, a lot of medical technology companies, so I have an access to certain apps and certain software which are proprietary, so I'll not deal with those, but mainly there are a lot of things I have developed in-house, a lot of things we have developed. And why this is important, because whenever you deal with an EMR company, you should always know this question, answer to this question: who owns the data? Is the data owned by you, or is the data owned by the EMR company? That's very important. And so far, most of the EMR companies I've dealt with have not been able to give except one or two have not been able to give me a very clear answer to this. So I said, why, forget them. I'll develop my own system. And right now, that is what I use. So typically, we use 3 systems. You can all do this yourself, right? This is DIY. Of course, you need a little bit, knowledge of these things. Perhaps, in future, we can work together and I can create this system for you. This is my dream, right? I'll create, a EMR system for Dr. Sabu or Dr. Navneet or Dr. Mahesh or, anybody else listening to this, Dr. Unni sir. I think that would be for me a privilege. But as of now, I'm doing it for myself and, experimenting, and perhaps I'll come out with the best system available. But I'll tell you what I do, and I'll show you, and I'm sure it'll be very fascinating for you if you look at this, right? So we have a customized app for indoor patients. This is again something, an app we have developed ourselves. So indoor patients with diabetes, we use this app. We use a customized EMR system, which is using a application called JotForm. And we have a data collection and analytics system, which is known as Airtable. These are all software which is available, for everybody, right? So, and these are not used for healthcare per se. These are used in other industries, but I, kind of use that in healthcare in a very effective way, and I am proud of myself, to what we have developed so far. So this is the JotForm, right? So this is our, integrated diabetes template version 2.5, right? So we've been making a lot of versions of this. We're trying to adapt this, right? You can see all this, we collect all this data for patient, the basic information, diagnosis, investigations, complications, treatment, insulin monitoring, follow-up, right? So all these things we have been able to collect. We have about 500 data points, 500 patients data in this platform alone. We have data on other platforms also, but in this platform alone, we have about 500 data points, which is, we've been working very hard to do that. It takes an extra few minutes to enter the data when the patient comes for the first time, but for the follow-up, it's very easy. And when I enter all this data, I press send, I get the prescription of the patient made in a PDF form delivered to my email, right? That's the system we have developed, right? So that's a fantastic system which very works for us in a beautiful way, right? This is our custom indoor app for diabetic patients. So new references, existing patients, search for the patients. This is the front screen. Then I'm sorry for the patient name, but you look at this. The before breakfast, before lunch, before dinner, random sugar value. Enter all this data, the dose of insulin, dose of other insulins, whether the patient is liquid diet, nil by mouth. All those things we put the data in, and then we kind of monitor those things. Okay. Now this is the Airtable. This is something we are using something new, right? We are using mainly this for analytics. So we collect again all this data. Our data from JotForm gets integrated with the data in this Airtable, so that we are able to analyze all this data, right? So we collect basic information. So is this the new visit, first visit, follow-up visit, male, female, age, MRN number, mobile number, follow-up details of the patient, all those things we collect in this chart, right? And we of course integrate the data of the diabetic patients with this, right? Indoor patients also we integrate the data. So the specific details, weight, BMI, the entire prescription, everything, right? We put into this Airtable. Now, why do we do this? Because this helps us to analyze the data, right? So I'll show, and the analytics is so simple that within minutes I'll have answers to a lot of your questions. I'll show you some examples of that, right? So how do we use this analytics? For example, let's say in the last week, how many patients, or yesterday, how many patients came with prior appointments? So I go to this analytics situation, right? These are all videos you can see, right? So I see the appointment system, right? Then I go and see the count, right? Yeah. So again, 90% of the patient came with appointment, and about 10% without appointment, right? So this is something we are able to generate within seconds, right? Again, broadly, what were the diagnoses of the patients? Again, if I want to see, what kind of patients did I see in my practice? Yes, in the last week, right? So I again collect the data here. I choose the broad diagnosis type, and you can see here, right? So you have within seconds, I know 50% patients were having type 2 diabetes, hypothyroid, type 1, thyrotoxicosis, pituitary, pediatric endo, so on and so forth, right? So within seconds, you have all this information at front of your on your fingertips. Yeah. Then of course, let's get into more important information, right? So if you want to see what was the mean HbA1c of patients who presented to us last month, again, so we look at this data, we put some filters here, right? So we are looking at the last month. Okay, so within the past month, we look at the data, and then we, of course, there will be certain data points which are, where we have not entered the HbA1c data, or the HbA1c was not available, right? So first HbA1c was not available, so we exclude that data, right? So we remove that where HbA1c is not available, okay, in the past month. Now we put this into the analytics filter. We put it into what is known as a pivot chart. Okay, you'll see that in a second. Yeah, so we sorted this into the field, and you can see here in the end, sorry, maybe it's not, yeah. Yeah, so okay, so we do this analytics, and you're able to see, yeah, this is the average. Okay, so average HbA1c is 8.78 of patients who first presented in the last month, right? Within seconds you will be able to kind of get this data. What percentage of patients were placed on insulin? Let's say I want to answer this question. I again sort this in the last month, right? I create a again a chart here, right? I take the data here. Okay, so I just want to see whether the patient was put on insulin or not put on insulin, right? So yeah, so interestingly, in the last month, 64% of patients were put on insulin, and the rest were not. 36% were not on insulin, right? So again, you can get this information very easily from the chart, right? Okay, what was the HbA1c of the patient who were on insulin versus who were not on insulin? Here again, we create the pivot chart, right? So yeah, so we create something known as a pivot chart, right? So we take two data points. We see insulin yes, insulin no, right? This is the number, and then we put the insulin thing here, right? So HbA1c thing here, first HbA1c, and you can see here. So you can say what the mean HbA1c of patient who were put on insulin was 9.82, and not on insulin was 8.07. So this is how you can. So the idea here is, what I'm trying to tell you is that similar data, so how well have we done in the past year in terms of HbA1c reduction? The time of presentation HbA1c in the past year was 8.95. On follow-up, it was 7.21. So we're done pretty well, right? I would say. What are the comorbidities that we see in our patients? Again, you can get. Yeah. Sure. I'll just wrap it up. Yeah. So which comorbidities with the patient had, again you can get all this data. So this is a device which we use, which is known as Airtable, and this kind of gives us all this information. So the idea which I'm trying to tell you is, data is past, present, and future, right? So that's the important thing, right? So data is important, and you need to collect your data of your patients, because it is going to be worth a lot, right? Data mining is here to stay, because data is gold, right? So it is definitely the future, right? Data is invaluable to improve clinical outcomes. Now I understand which patients I start on insulin, right? So in the future, I'll be making this choice much more wisely. If a patient comes to me with HbA1c more than 9, I will start the patient on insulin, because I found that this ultimately gives me good clinical outcomes, right? So thank you for patient listening, and again, you can say, if you have any things, queries, questions, you can send me an email on this. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/OmMechanics. So the idea was to give a broad overview of data collection, the importance of the same, and I hope some interesting things, some apps that we use